Over the past 20 years, the US has borrowed more and more money. As a comparison to the share of GDP, it's around 100%, the highest since World War II. The biggest recent hike happened in 2020, when the coronavirus pandemic hit the US and crippled the nation's economy. The question of whether it's economically feasible to keep adding to this mountain of debt has long vexed Congress, which is in charge of the debt ceiling, the law that decides how much the US is allowed to borrow.
We Democrats supported lifting the debt ceiling because it's the responsible thing to do.
I implore them one more time not to play Russian roulette with the American economy.
Today, interest rates are at historic lows, which economists say means the government can keep borrowing. But the Treasury is competing for savers' money with other borrowers, like households, companies, and other governments. If those other people decide to borrow more, the Treasury would have to offer a higher interest rate to attract those savings. But there's another limitation too. If Congress puts too much of the borrowed money back into the economy through things like stimulus checks, that can cause inflation. So, back to Congress's role.
The debt ceiling needs to be addressed. The only question is who should address it. And I hope our friends on the other side will step up and take care of it.
Since 2011, each of the 7 times that the debt limit was addressed, Congress did so on a bipartisan basis.
Congress decides on the debt limit. When the Treasury has reached it, it can't issue more until Congress votes to raise the debt limit. With the option of printing money off the table, it will ultimately come down to Congress to raise the debt limit in December to avoid a default on the debt.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. What we witnessed today was, for the first time in history, something a government called a fiscal and economic snapshot. A snapshot is defined in most dictionaries as sort of a quick photograph, or in modern lingo we call it a selfie, an economic selfie. But this finance minister, in talking for about 15 minutes straight, could not bring himself to utter the size of the debt or the deficit. Now, I will be the first, apparently, to do so. I ask all members to ensure they are in their seats and that they, if anyone out there is listening to this speech while operating heavy equipment, you might want to turn the volume down. This government has now smashed through the $1 trillion debt mark. $1.06 trillion is the size of Canada's national debt.
Tonight, the alarming spike in inflation soaring to its highest level in nearly 40 years, casting a shadow over America's entire economy. The stunning surge in December, 7% over a year ago, the pace of inflation slowing slightly over last month, still marking 3 straight months with inflation over 6%. Inflation sending already sky-high prices soaring even higher across the board. Gas prices up 50% over last year. Used cars and trucks rising 37%. Meat, chicken, fish, and eggs 13% higher. Rent and mortgages going up 4%. Tonight, nearly half of all small businesses say they're having to raise their prices.
What is the White House saying tonight about how long this high inflation might last?
Yeah, Lester, remember 6 months ago, President Biden insisted rising inflation was temporary, but tonight the White House says these higher prices could last until the end of this year.
Canada's annual pace of inflation has climbed to the highest rate in over 30 years. Statistics Canada says the consumer price index was up 4.8% compared to a year ago. That's the highest rate we've seen since 1991. Grocery prices rising 5.7%. Prices at the pump up 33.3% year over year. And shelter costs jumping 5.4% over the past year, December marking 9 months in a row that headline inflation is above the Bank of Canada's target zone of between 1% and 3%.